Welcome to the Clutch Burners Podcast. This is your home for stick shift drag racing, stick shift tech, stick shift smack talk, and more. And over there, my guest is the Canadian Chuck Norris, Rich Guido.
And over there is the Miles of Mayhem champion, the Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0 champion. You might have lost at the Mile High Nationals. But other than that, champion Bill Armstrong.
Yeah, the one with the absolute most people watching. It was pretty embarrassing, and we'll talk about it. And Rich, who's our good looking moderator there?
That right there is Travis Foster of Stick Shift Nation. We can't get our shirts in order here, but look at this.
That's right. I got Clutch Burners.
Yeah,
He's got Clutch Burners.
For me, I just pick whichever one I have clean.
Is that your toy bin behind you, or is that where you keep all your shirts?
Yeah, actually, that's all my experiments. There's some kids' toys, a mini fridge, all the essentials.
It's actually quite organized. I like that.
Yeah, my girlfriend got a Cricut, so we're trying out some little things to cut out. Like that right there is like a pegboard where we can put donuts on because we're having a diaper party for our second kid. So it's going to be a donuts and diaper party.
When is she due?
October 3rd.
Ooh, right around the corner.
Yeah, very, very soon.
Nice. That's exciting. Congratulations.
Yep. Hopefully it's a stick shifting little girl this time.
Do you have a name picked out?
There's a couple, but the thing about baby names is whenever you tell people what you think you're going to name them, they always go, "Oh, that's nice." But you can see in their soul, they don't like that name.
Well, as long as you name her Billy, I think that's great.
Right. Yeah. That was actually a choice up until recently. So,
oh, I see. Yeah, that's great.
We watched this friend of ours named Bill get embarrassed on national television for breaking a throttle cable. So
oh, we're gonna just go there right away then.
Oh man, no, it's great to be back. I mean, I think it's been a couple months. I have to look at the date, but I've gotten so many messages that are like, are you guys still doing the podcast? When the next podcast coming out? Did the Bill or Rich put automatics in their cars? All sorts of questions. No, but really the answer is you guys have been very busy. We've all been very busy. You guys have been doing much cooler stuff than I have. I've been painting my house and organizing and putting a new roof on and things like that aren't very cool. So,
wow.
How about we talk about some things that were pretty cool? Like you won Rocky Mountain Race Week. Tell us about that.
Yes. So it was very interesting. Up into Rocky Mountain Race Week, I had gone to Bonneville with the help of Tom Stark and his son Blaine to try to get radials figured out for my car because I have a buddy of mine that's running radials and having pretty good success. That would be Rich Guido. And I was a little worried. And yeah, I was pretty terrified and it didn't work out so well. Tried just testing and everything and just could not get them to work. And the biggest thing was when they spin, they rattle everything and they rattle stuff hard. And that was that was my concern, and that's exactly what happened. So I ended up running last year's slicks at Rocky Mountain Race Week. And normally my pattern has been I buy brand new slicks at the beginning of every season because the car's heavy. With the power it makes, it kind of kills the sidewall. But I was like, it'll be okay. Well, I tell you what, those wasted tires would not hold any power. Like literally every single track I was turning it down. Like I think we made 4 or 5 passes at Pueblo, and I was really only at about 12 pounds of boost before I wasn't even pedaling it in 4th gear. Like it was spinning so bad at the top of the track. Like it was like, I think I probably had one of my scariest passes ever at Pueblo because it spun so hard, and I pedaled it twice in 4th gear. So when I got back, we'll still talk about that. So I was also really concerned because Tom Stark brought, he's kind of famous for that nitrous wagon that he sprays tons of nitrous in, and it's pretty badass stick shift. Well, he came with a bit of a surprise, and he picked up a twin turbo Fox body that apparently has been, I don't know, 520s in the eighth or something. Like that's ridiculous. That's so fast. It's a weapon. And he pulled the stick shift, the face plated TKX out of the wagon and put it in that Mustang. And I was like, oh boy, it's only like, I don't know, 1,100 pounds lighter than my car or something. It's so light. And I think he probably had to add weight to it to get it to be where it needed to be. And, clearly the motor makes power. So I was a little concerned, but he had some teething problems that week, up to and including. Well, he was in first place actually the first couple days, and then on the last day, was it the last day in Pueblo? I think we started in Pueblo and ended in Pueblo, but he broke an axle, and then his daughter also had a Fox body there, and she basically donated the rear end out of her car, and so they swapped the rear end so he could make a pass. And I don't think they had the right tires on it or something, but it spun pretty bad, and that kind of locked up the win for me. But it was not a fast week. It was a lot of turning the car down, getting it to hook on basically some worn out tires for what I'm trying to do. So that was Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0. Oh, wait. And then there was all kinds of problems. Do we want to go into those right now?
Yeah. Well, remind me. So let's go into more depth into the radial. So, what worked? What didn't work? What do you think you're going to do from here?
Well, I think I won't ever buy tires again from a friend of mine because he sabotaged me. That's what it was. No, I had got those tires from Rich because they wouldn't quite fit on his car, and they fit on mine. Um, and I had some conversations with the guys at Moore Racing, and Rich, help me out with their names again because I'm forgetful.
Chris Moore and Stephen Plemons.
Yes, yes. And so they've got that 69 Camaro that's on Caltrax that's wicked fast. I mean, it's been like 800 in the quarter mile, like I don't know, 170 or something.
Yeah, I think it's been 520s. Like
Yeah, that's ripping.
fast.
And so I talked to them, um, and ended up doing some changes to the bar angle on my Caltrax because the car was just separating so hard and so fast that honestly wasn't able to control it. Like it would separate so fast it would hit, it would top out the shocks and then bounce and spin. That's what was happening. Um, and even with like 30 clicks of rebound in the Mensers, it just couldn't control it. And he said, I forget which one, but one of the More Racing guys said that he didn't think that you could control that separation if you had any bit of upward bar angle in a Caltrack, because it's just so much leverage. So we ended up changing the bar angle by machining some holes so I could raise the back, because lowering the front just, I'd have to make a new plate and it would reduce ground clearance, and I drive it so much. So we accomplished the same thing by raising it up in the back. And I don't think we actually tried that with the radial because it was just rattling the car so hard. And then I had a conversation with Matt Blasco, about coming to Miles of Mayhem. And, the idea was I would tell like one or two people. Well, all these people knew, and I was pretty sure that Rich was going to know. But he told me, he said, the tracks aren't going to be that great. Don't bring the radials, bring some slicks. And I really didn't want to spend the week trying to test the car. I wanted to be competitive and, try to beat up on my buddy Rich Guido and whoever else was there. And so I bought a fresh pair of Mickey Thompson slicks at Race Week from CCS. I forget the name, but the Central Speed Supply or something that was there. That they were awesome, and I bought those tires, and that's what I took to Miles of Mayhem.
Okay, I got to I got to jump in. So I'm watching from afar, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna kick these guys' butts next time I see them. I'm like, what are they doing running? Oh, you're running 9:30s. Like, what was your
Yeah.
quickest of the week?
Oh, I don't even know if a 9:30 was the quickest of the week. Like it was a mess. The whole week was really tough.
And I'm after sick week. I'm cocky. I'm thinking, oh man, I. And so once they
Because you
finish
were
race
one
week,
and done. You were one and done 8-second passes every day at sick week.
yeah, I just looked at the passes, and I mean, I think if we talk eighth mile for a quick sec, I think my slowest was a 582, and my quickest was a 570. And so I'm watching these guys at race week, and so they finished the week, and I thought I'm going to go to the track and just make sure everything's still good with my car. And of course, I didn't know Bill was coming, and I went up and I had put a new disc in my clutch, but I hadn't freshened it, the surfaces. So the first pass I made, I drove through the clutch till about half track, and then excuse me, and then I took off, and then I went right back up. I think I added a turn of base and went 884. And I thought, oh yeah, I would have kicked those guys' butts down there. I don't know what they're doing. And our local Rad Torque is the one that we started Miles of Mayhem at and stuff. Is I mean the prep isn't like Florida, so I was pretty confident in the radials. Um, but we'll get to we'll get to the rest of that story. But much like Bill described, I will have a fresh set of tires before I go to my next event too.
Yeah. So for race week, I had a fantastic co-pilot, um, Andrew Calkins, and he's been co-pilot before. And he does a great job. He's just very detail oriented. But we were driving, and really no issues. And then all of a sudden there was a noise, and sixth gear was super rough, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird. We just broke something in the transmission." And we were just, 55 going down the highway.
100
um
retro.
plus 30. But and then fifth gear was rough too, but fourth gear seemed to be okay. So we slowed down a bit, and we're like, all right, we'll just go till the next stop here. Now it was somewhere between 30 and 50 miles that we drove, and I sit back and it just makes me sick thinking about it right now, because when we stopped, we popped the valve covers. I broke a valve spring, and these were not double valve springs. They were like beehive springs. And I like won the lottery. Like the fact that I didn't drop a valve and wreck the motor is like unbelievable, because that spring broke in two places, and we kept driving. Like I'm like, it'll be fine. We're going to get to the next stop. And so we pulled off, and we were like, oh boy. Now, luckily for me, my daughter was actually doing road week in my other car, and road weekers were allowed to help a race weeker one time during the week. So we were in Sterling, Colorado, and we jumped in that car, and she set the cruise control at 90, and we drove 144 miles to my house, picked up all my spare valve spring stuff and everything I thought we'd need, and we drove back. And borrowed an air tank and an air compressor because we had to pressurize the cylinder. Like we had to change a valve spring in like way less than ideal conditions. And so we did that, and we put in one of the old pack springs that I used to run, which are actually the same ones Rich runs. And I think we were about 5 hours round trip from us pulling back out of Sterling, and we still had 170 miles to do on the route. So we did that, and then we got home and been having some issues with the clutch. I had used the clutch and not a fresh one. So ended up changing the clutch, And the next morning, we had to get some sleep. So we went to bed, got up early. Actually, I got up early that morning. I changed the clutch that next morning. And then we tackled the valve springs, and we changed all the springs because I was not confident in what was going on. And we put in the double pack springs that I had, and they're like a cup spring. They're really, really good. Reshimmed it, but it took us a long time. As a matter of fact, we missed first and second round at race week. We were so late getting back to the track. But we got back to the track and got stuff figured out, and then ended up winning. But it was a slog, that's for sure.
Before we go further, so let's go back to first. You thought was transmission. So
Yes, yes.
for all the stick people out there, if you're driving along and all of a sudden it feels like your transmission's falling apart, check your valve springs, which is kind of not intuitive. But I had the same thing before where I had one cylinder drop on me due to a spark plug. And all of a sudden it won't run in sixth, it won't run in fifth. But if you get enough RPMs, it feels like it's okay. But there's a
Yes.
good chance that you're down a cylinder.
Yes, and that's a great point, because after talking to you, that made total sense. And then I had a failure driving to Miles of Mayhem, and when that failure happened, I knew exactly what was going on, and we pulled over quickly and fixed fixed it, and we had dropped a cylinder. But Rich confirmed exactly what I had happened, and it's those power pulses with the overdrive going, it's not smooth enough and it gets rough, and that was a super good indication. I can talk about that when we talk about Miles of Mayhem, but we have something to talk about after race week, and that was Mile High
Mile
Nationals.
High Nationals.
Yeah. So we were super, super flattered to get an invitation from Matt Frost to be one of, well, there were 4 cars invited to make exhibition passes at Mile High Nationals. And Rich, you can take it from there.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Adam Dory and Matt who both, did a bunch of work in the background and and got us invited. Miles, what was Miles' last name?
Groves.
Yeah.
And
Who's
what's the other
19,
one?
by the way, 19 years old.
19 years old. Yeah. Adam's favorite launching car at like 7,000 RPM. Another stick shift.
Yeah. Yep.
And then remind me what the other
Ford
name is.
powered Coyote, by the way.
Yeah, Ford powered Coyote. Yeah.
Yeah, the car sounds great.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
And Anthony Latimer.
Yeah, Anthony. And so, we really didn't know what the format was, and frankly, NHRA can be a little fun to deal with when you do something like this. So, I actually didn't know if I was just coming down to make one hit in front of a whole bunch of people. But the closer I got, the more it sounded like that's exactly what was going to happen. We were going to get one hit, but I mean, it was super cool. We went to Bill's. I stayed overnight there. Basically drove 1,200 miles to go a quarter of a mile. We all hooked up there, went for a nice little cruise together, and then honestly, the coolest part was we got to park in staging on the slope, which makes it interesting to adjust your clutch and a few things while you're parked on the slope at Vandermeer. But every racer that went down that track had to go by us, and it was so cool. Like if you look at my Facebook page or Clay Milliken's one video where he was at Vandermeer, you'll see us when the top fuel cars are making hits. Everyone just stops and smiles and kind of giggles a little bit. But yeah, it was super cool.
And let's add that Clay Milliken won Top Fuel, and he's like, man, he goes, I've listened to every Clutch Burners episode. Like, he was going on and on. We were both just like, and he's like, can I be on the podcast? Which we're gonna have him on, but we were like, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a stack of clutches.
Yeah, they burn way more clutches than we do. So
Oh yeah.
Every pass. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
So
pretty cool. I mean, they were literally pushing Clay's car up to make a hit, and he left the car, comes over with his phone, and starts interviewing us.
Hey, Rich, can I qualify for the podcast even though I don't have to shift gears?
Oh yes, sir. We would love to have you.
It's got a clutch, right? It's my top fuel car has a clutch. It's Clutch Burners podcast.
Totally
So.
is. Yes, sir.
Does it have a bank shift Billy in it though?
It does not have a bank shift Billy.
Owner and proprietor of the bank shift Billy.
Man, I hate it. These cars are cool. I wish I had time, but I gotta go to work.
And talks about our cars. He's definitely into drag and drive too. Definitely go check out his YouTube channel, Clay Milliken, and he's building his son's truck called Bentley, which is a 4-door Dodge short box. It's got a twin turbo third gen Hemi in it. When he finds time and finds the right window, he's gonna come and do a drag and drive event. So he definitely follows us and watches our stuff. It's pretty cool. So we will definitely have him on here. We're just gonna have to figure out a time where he's free. But he spent 3 minutes talking to us. I was blown away. And finally, he's like mad that he's got to leave and go make a hit in his 12,000 horsepower dragster. It was pretty cool.
It was pretty ridiculous. But yeah, and I have to hand it, Adam Dory got to do a bit of announcing while we were making passes, which was super cool. But he spent most of the day standing in front of our cars and just talking to people about drag and drive and the fact that Rich Guido drove 1,250 miles down to make a pass in his car, like the whole day. And I was just like, man, does this guy ever quit? Like it was pretty awesome.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And then when we got to make our first pass, which we thought was the only pass, what'd you run, Rich? 920 something?
Yeah, I think I went 920. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
spun bad off. No, I think I went 10-0 at 162 miles an hour or something. I spun hard on the line, and then of course, I had to make sure I beat you, so I was not letting off. And I didn't let off my throttle. What did you do, Bill?
Yeah, I made it real easy, and I gave Adam lots of time to talk because my throttle cable decided to leave the party. And I think I idled down the track with about 25,000 people watching to a incredible 22-second ET. It was and then they got to tow me off the track because it wouldn't idle up the end of the track. So Bandimere, the staging lanes are downhill, the track is flat obviously, and then the end of the track is uphill. I couldn't even get off the track. Yeah, that was that was what we thought was our only pass.
Yeah, and then day 2, we as far as we knew, we weren't going to get any more passes. So our cars are in street mode, essentially ready to hook the trailers up and leave.
Yep.
And the staging guy from NHRA comes up and he's like, "You guys are up in 5." We're like,
"What?"
We're like, "We didn't think we'd make a pass today." And he's like, "Well, you're on my sheet." He's like, "You're up." And we looked at him like, 5 minutes ain't gonna cut it, man. We gotta switch these cars all over. And so then we start chatting a bit more. Sorry. And he, we figured maybe we had 15 minutes. So it was like a dog digging a hole out of my car. I mean, my trunk, all the stuff's going flying out of the back. Bill doesn't even have a co-pilot. So we're trying to switch over 2 cars. We didn't even switch over our
front tires. We still
front tires.
front tires with my hubcaps on them.
Yeah, I had pretty much boomer, or I had my trim rings on and my center caps. Thank God they didn't decapitate anybody going down the track, but it was a shit show. So, and it was hot. So by the time we got in our suits and we're in staging, we want to have a nap, not make a pass.
Yeah,
and then,
totally.
And then I think I went 920 or something on that pass or something at 100.
Yeah, and I had the radials on, and it was a mess. Like it just didn't work right. So, it was pretty interesting to say the least.
Hmm.
Yeah.
At least you gave them a good representation of drag and drive. Is one car makes a brilliant pass and one car doesn't.
Oh, I wanted to run an 8 so bad. Like,
I wanted to run
um,
8 second pass. Honestly, like what would have been incredible is we both went like 8:69 side by side at nationals. That would have been like the best.
yeah, because we have still yet to do that. Make eight
Yeah.
second passes side by side. But
Yes,
race week,
yes, it's
race week, we
coming.
are going to have to perform in end of September, beginning of October, because we have some pretty stiff competition.
Yeah.
But
Whew.
I
Um.
got to tell a story about the salt flats before I leave. So you guys will like this, and I'm sure our two listeners will also like this. And one of them is the guy I was talking to. Danny Bemis is his name. He's about 68 years old. Listens to all our podcasts, follows our stuff. Huge fan, I would say. Anyways, and I met him last time I was on the Salt in 2021, and so he pits with another guy who actually his car was destroyed. It was a Cavalier and a stretched Cavalier, and I think it took flight at like 250 miles an hour, went straight up in the air, and this thing was super extended. But anyways, Danny, first thing Danny says to me when I see him again, he's like, "Oh yeah, I was going to tell you, Rich. You know, I was out shopping. You know, I went to different stores, and I just couldn't find a purse that I liked." And he's got a '67 Chevelle. I think it's a '66, '67 Chevelle, and he's very very serious too. I looked all over the place. You know, I liked the different colors, and I just couldn't find a purse that I liked. He said, so I had to rip that automatic out of that car, and he's like, I'm putting a TKX in it now. He said, I feel way better, and I just couldn't find a purse that I liked. So I laughed. Yeah, the way he told the story and everything. Oh yeah, so we had a good time. All of the salt flats, him and I were BSing about stick shift racing and all the crazy stuff that we've done. So it was pretty funny. It made my made my whole week for him to. He'd been probably waiting to tell me that story for quite a while, but it was pretty awesome.
That is awesome. So tell us more about the salt. The conditions. Like, did you guys get to run? Like, give us a recap because I haven't actually talked to you much about that since you just got back yesterday, right?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a quick. So I crew on a team. There's probably 4 or 5 of us for Sean Driver, who's got a '53 Studebaker in 2021 at World of Speed. World of Speed. It's the one that's in the fall, anyways. And he went 292 miles an hour, and then and back. I think that was the faster pass, and I think the other pass was like uh 280 something. But anyway, so he got a record at 286 miles an hour. He's got a red hat, which is what you get if you go over 200 miles an hour and you break a record. So if you're ever at the Salt, you'll see a bunch of guys wearing red hats. All of those guys broke a record to get those hats. So Sean really wanted to go 300, and this was not the year. Like it rained before, and when it rains out in the Salt, it's not like sand where it gets hot and evaporates. It sits there for a long time, and so we had to drive through 6 to 8 inches of salt water every day to get out to the pits, and the pits are 5 miles long.
Yeah, I saw your
So
video. I was like, you should have had a boogie board behind that truck. It was
yeah,
that much water.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. You don't want to. Yeah, it's pretty salty water to say the least. So consequently, we only had a 3 mile track. Usually, there's a 5 mile track. So we were pretty sure Sean wasn't going to get a record breaking pass because it takes a while on the Salt because it's almost like driving on ice. Like you can't. It's not like drag racing where you lay into the throttle right off the bat. You have to ease into it. In fact, it's one of the worst sports to watch because at the beginning, yeah, everyone can hardly get out of their own way. Like it's literally like half people are stalling. Lots of people need push carts for the first. 100 feet to even get the car going. And then if you're at the 3 mile mark, when you're
And
watching cars
and that's
go,
and sorry to interrupt, but that's because they have so little gear in the car for the top end, right?
yeah, they're trying to go, anywhere over 200 miles an hour. So they don't have any gear. Um, anyways, there was two guys, Les Holm and Carl. I can't think of what Carl's last name is. Both of them are going to just license. So Les went out first, um, and we're watching him, and it was like, how got the parachutes out already? Like, did it rattle loose or what's going on? And but no, he was looking for a place to pull over, and we broke an adjuster on one of the rockers. It broke in three places. So
Polylock, you
that was
said, right?
a polylock, yeah.
Yeah.
So Jeff McConnell says he's seen that before, where if you tighten up the center of the polylock and then you reef on the outside, that could cause it. So I hadn't touched the valve train, by the way. So we had more. So we put
Disclaimer.
another one on, but the lineup is like 4 or 5 hours long in the heat on the salt. So we only got to make one pass on day one, and then day two. There was some discussion between the owner and the guy making the pass that he shouldn't have to shift out of third gear. And let's be honest, when you're making passes, whether it's quarter mile or even a pass on the salt, there's lots going on. So I'm not going to be judgmental at all, but um, Carl had to go between 150 and 175. He was going 173 miles an hour in third gear at about 6,500 RPM for about a minute, and he could have shifted into fourth, but the discussion before said he shouldn't have to, and so he got his license and then checked a rod at the end of the pass.
Oh.
So that pretty much ended our week at the salt, but we were already delayed 3 days and stuff. So looking at the data log, we could do some stuff differently. I think we need to do something different with the oil. Um, but if you think about our passes in the quarter mile, and then you think about what these engines put up with on the salt, like even if you would have shifted to fourth, he probably would have been at 4,500 or something. But
Oh, right. Yeah,
um,
just about peak torque.
yeah,
Even worse, maybe.
and I mean the car's moving around, like he's just about going from side to side, like just trying to keep the thing straight as he's accelerating. At this point, though, he's just trying to hold the throttle. I mean, the car is capable of doing 300 miles an hour, so at 175, I think he was only like 30% throttle in third gear, but he was at sustained RPM for quite a while.
So
And
what's the
what's
power
the
plant in that car?
yeah.
It's a big block Chevy, 517 cubes with a 106 millimeter turbo.
So what class would he be in? What are his restraints there?
Um, well, so when you're doing test passes, you can pretty much do anything you want. All you're trying to do is go. But Sean's record, I think, is like B gas altered. Um, he had to be running special fuel. There's certain body modifications. In fact, when we got the record the first time, um, the guy tried to tell us that we didn't get the record because we had tape on the car to tape the seams. But what he was kind of a newer tech guy. What he didn't realize is you couldn't have any from the doors back. You can't have any tape on any seams, but from the doors forward, like the hood seams and stuff, you could tape all that stuff, and that was perfectly fine. So um, here's an interesting part for a couple of interesting facts about the salt. So if you're racing the salt, so Bill and I wanted to go and try to make, see how fast we could go in our cars. You can't drive them anywhere but the track. So we would have to get them towed on. You have to tow to the beginning, and you have to have them towed off the track. And you can't drive them anywhere. But if I wanted to just drive my GTO out there to watch, you can drive them anywhere. I think that's to keep people from making hits, some other
Mm-hmm.
place on the salt. Um, but their tech is also super sticky. In fact, if you watch Alex Taylor's videos, she showed a bailout. Um, and you have to pass the bailout test in a certain amount of seconds. Otherwise, you don't get to run. So you have to practice getting out of that car when you're fully buckled in. I've seen them actually do it where they blindfold you, or like they put a black cover over your helmet shield. But it's really good because if you're going 200 and you crash, you need to know how to get out of that car fast. And they make sure you can reach all your fire systems, your parachutes. They run you through all of that. And then even before you go to make a hit, the tech guys, like I tightened um, less into the seat, and the tech guy still goes in there, checks all the straps, checks everything, makes sure that he's good to go, and quite often tightens, or he will tell you to tighten the belts more. And so it's really good that way. They've learned through probably fatalities that this is not something you fool around with. So
That sport is definitely a labor of love. I used to give tractor pullers shit for driving all the way across the country to make one pass, but it seems like salt flat guys wait all year to make a pass. So if it doesn't rain, so definitely a huge
Yeah.
respect to those guys that put in all that work just to hope and pray that the weather's good.
What's the difference between salt flats and like Muroc, the dry lake stuff? Do you
dirt
know?
and salt.
Okay, well,
That's
Fair
that's
enough.
pretty much it. Like, um, yeah, I think the dry lake beds are basically the same kind of deal. You got to clean up rocks and do all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I think it's just dirt compared to salt. I think the
is that
records can still be the same as far as I know, but
and is dirt likely a better racing surface than salt?
no, think I think the salt is better under good conditions. Like in 2021, the salt was so hard. I had my GTO out on it. You could do a burnout on the salt, like, and leave marks. Like
Oh
that's how hard
wow.
it was. So
Wow, okay.
it, and when there's water on it and the wind's blowing, it like completely smooths itself out. They still drag it, but it's quite a surface. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and Alex, she the way it works is your first license is 100 to 125, and then your next license is 125 to 150, then 150 to 175, 175. And every time you got to pull the chute and you got to do all the right stuff, and then they sign you off so that you're good for the next one. So I think Alex ended up going like 235. So I think she's got her B license, and I think there's only one more license, and that's 250 to 300. And once she gets that, there's no limit anymore. So
That's
she
awesome.
did really good. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And most of those cars on the salt, they're all stick. Nobody runs an automatic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I knew they all
Yeah.
seemed cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we got Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0. We covered the salt. Where are we at now? My surprise visit
yeah.
to you, Rich.
Miles of Mayhem.
Yes, Miles of Mayhem. So originally I wasn't planning to come to Miles of Mayhem. And then some events lined up perfectly and I decided to do that. And I told a few more people than I probably should have, but it was still not enough that Rich had any idea. However, his wife was a great sport, and I had to make sure we had a place to sleep. And so she knew we were coming, and it's super funny because, well, it's not funny, but the way it went down was so, like, and you tell the story. So Brett in
Yeah. So I'm
his dart, yeah.
yeah, my good buddy Brent Stevens. He's got a super fast 69 Dart, and he was
Gen
up
3 Hemi, right? Gen
Gen
3
3
Hemi.
Hemi. Car's been I think 871, but it's definitely capable of 850s. Like it's fast. And so there was a Mopar meet like 2 days before Miles of Mayhem, and he went up there to test, and he he thinks it was the dome sensor that failed, but he put like 32 pounds of boost to it and windowed the block. And so I just find this out, and I think he's going to be my competition. And as fun as Florida was, I mean, as soon as the fast guys were out and there was nobody right there with me, you're kind of on cruise control. Like I was one and done. Now I was happy with the passes I was making, but at the same time, it's not very much fun when the next guy is like half a second slower than you. So, anyways, with Brent being out, I thought for sure he was going to be kicking my butt all week, and so I'm literally sitting in the garage moping, and my wife comes to the garage. She's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, my buddy just blew up his motor, and um, it just sucks because I thought we were going to be racing each other all week." And she was almost like, "You'll be fine," because
Because she knew we
Bill
were
was
on the
coming,
way.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
So
then Dan Nissen messages me that he's just passing through Calgary. I'm like, well, man, you should stop by and or he just crossed the border or something.
which we
And
crossed with him, by the way.
yeah, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so I said to Sylvia, I'm like, do we get some extra food? Dan, one guy might stop by and stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, it should be fine. And then I'm watching her put the chicken in the fridge in the oven. I'm like, why is there so much food? It's just one guy. And I'm just thinking this. I didn't say it. And then I go downstairs and go to grab a pop or something, and there's beer in the fridge. I'm like, why is there beer in the fridge? She never buys beer. Right over my head. And I also my dad was here, so in the living room, I'm like, why is there a mattress like in the basement? Like, what's going on? I don't know.
Two of
Just
them, actually.
I
Two
never
of
thought
them.
about that. I got cars in the brain, and I am clueless. So I'm in the house. I'm waiting for Dan to show up, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings. I open the door, and here's Bill and Jamie standing. I'm like, you can see it on YouTube, on Facebook. But I was stunned. I was like, "What the hell?" And of course, he walked. I think he walked a mile so I wouldn't hear his car. But
It's his dog.
what the hell?
Woo, buddy! Surprise!
What the heck?
We walked over. I parked way down there.
What the heck?
Surprise!
Well, that's good because my other buddy just blew his car up.
Yeah, we parked a lot. So there's some stories coming up to this I gotta tell. So we left from my house. We drove about 900 miles the first day and stayed the night in Shelby, Montana. And then met up with Dan Nissen. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the other two guys. But they had some paperwork for us to fill out to cross the border so that it would be easier for us to come back in. But during that drive, we were climbing a hill, passing cars, and all of a sudden sixth gear got rough. And I was like, oh, I know what's going on. We just dropped the cylinder. And so I quick looked down at the EGT, and sure enough, we had a cold cylinder. So we pulled over right away and popped the valve cover off. And this was super strange, but we broke. I have Crowder shaft rockers, same as Rich has. So they're paired up. There's 2 rockers per shaft, and one of the shafts broke, and the rocker was just rolling around in there. And I had spares, so we swapped them out, and it was literally 40 minutes. We're back on the road. And then we met up. We had breakfast with Darcy Laws, which Rich had done, like, I don't know, was it even a week before?
Yeah, on the way home from Mile High Nationals, I stopped too.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, don't post anything because he doesn't know we're coming. So then we crossed the border. Well, we go to cross the border, and we walked in to get this paperwork processed. And we're on the U.S. side because the paperwork is for coming back, not going into Canada. And I have on this Sick Week shirt that has Rich Guido stuff on the back. And the guy looks up and he goes, did you do sick week? And I go, no, my buddy did, Rich Guido. And he goes, oh my God. And he's like this huge fanboy of Rich.
Yeah, well,
He's
yeah,
like,
he's the
he
Prime
comes,
Minister of Canada.
yeah, right. He's like, he comes through here all the time. He's so awesome and all that. Yeah. And he goes, well, how do you know him? And I'm like, well, we race each other, stick shift stuff. And then he's like, well, what car are you driving? And I told him, and he just freaked out. Like, he wanted to go outside. He had to check the cars anyway, but yeah, it was pretty flattering. Like, it was great. So then,
Is that the same guy? Rich told a story where there's a guy that stopped him at the border that was like, I'm a huge fan. Is this the same guy?
Same dude. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
he's a great.
his Instagram is Nova Nate or something
Yeah,
like that. Like,
that's right, yeah.
he's super cool dude.
That's
His car's
awesome.
really cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So then we cross and we're driving to get to Rich's house. And we're looking at the map. I'm like, okay, we're gonna park here because I don't want him to hear us. And we're literally at this roundabout to turn to his house, and I'm looking at my fuel pressures all over the place. I'm like, oh my God, I think we're like about to run out of gas. And so we loop back around, go to the gas station, and then we pull up. And where I parked, it was way further than I thought. So we walk up to the house and surprise him, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go back and get the car. And Rich starts filming, and he has to do all this fill-in stuff because like he's
I'm like, how
expecting me
far
to
does
just
it
whip around the
go?
corner. We're probably still like walking to the car. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
And before we forget, so Darce Laws, he's an Olds fanatic, and so when Rich shows up with a black car with a red interior, even though it's a GTO, he comes out with his black Olds with a red interior. And what did he show up for you, Bill?
Yeah. Well, okay, so we ate with him twice. So when we were going up, he showed up on a, I don't know, some really early Harley. But when we came back and ate breakfast with him on the way back, he shows up in a burgundy Olds with a tan interior or something like that. And then he shot a picture, which we'll post, of the two cars sitting next to each other. It was classic. And his collection is just amazing.
Insane.
Like, and
Yeah.
we didn't even see all of it. It was just awesome though.
Yeah, he's got cars to match all of his outfits. And he's
I
a big
think so.
automatic guy, so he has purses to match as well.
But he does have a lot of stick shifts though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. A lot of those Oldsmobiles are stick shifts.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
it's pretty
he
cool.
gave me a big ribbing at PRI. Where he's like, "Oh, you guys talk about all that silly stick shift stuff." So got to give it back a little bit.
So yes. So then got to Rich's house, and Canada was beautiful. That whole week was pretty awesome. Like, not quite what I had expected, and I was a little on the fence about 8th Mile stuff. But I tell you what, after doing it, I'm a huge fan. I burned probably half the fuel that I normally burn in a race week or something, and way easier on the car. Like, that last half track in 4th gear under full power, that's where stuff's going to go wrong usually. Like, if it's tune-up related or something, and you're done at half track. I mean, it's still fun. Like, I had a great time. And my brand new slicks worked pretty well.
A lot better than my. Should we get into my woes or? So first of all, I think the most important thing to remember is the quickest pass of all of us was made on day one by me, and then I went for shit after that. But so I did go. Well, I think on day one, both Bill and I think I went 584, and you went 587 or something, didn't you?
Something, yeah. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a rough week. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
I gotta stay in his house."
So I thought, like, that's what I wanted a battle, and so then day one I went 588, one and done, and
Day
Bill was
two,
trying to
day
wear
2. Oh, you're
uh,
talking about the test day before.
the test day before we went 584
Yes.
and 587 or something, and
Yep.
so both of us thought, okay, our cars are good to go. Let's go have some fun. Day one went I went 588, and I think you went 9-0, or no, you went 590, didn't you?
Could be. Yeah, let's just call it that. That sounds better.
Yeah, you were losing anyways after day one.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then we had a big drive on day two, or we had a big drive after we raced on day one.
Yeah.
And we went to Saskatoon, and that drive is pretty long and straight. And it was
Yes. Yes.
probably 400 miles, quite a drive. And then when I got to Saskatoon on day two, I couldn't make nothing happen. Like my slicks are either done but I had made some changes. Um, but I was pretty confident because I went 884, I went 584, then a 588. I get to the next track, and I would say the prep probably wasn't as good, but Kyle Williams was in front of me. Um, I think for my first pass, and he went 533, and
Yeah.
and he's running
Oof.
radials. And
Yeah.
so I go up there and I proceeded to obliterate the tires time after time. And Bill's right. When radials don't work, you are fighting a hard battle. So I mean, I was driving through some nasty stuff, thinking I was going to leave my rear end and spit it right out the other side.
Yeah.
But I think I ended up going like a 640 to Bill's 6-1 or something. So it was still tight after day two, but
I think you were still in the lead after day two.
no, you passed me.
Oh,
Because I remember
okay.
going back to the pits and it looked like you were going to make another pass, and I'm like, dude, you don't have to make another pass. I'm not going to make any more because it feels like I'm going to destroy my car. And I mean, the changes that I made for the technical guys were, I sent my shocks back to
Viking.
to Viking to have them revalve them, which their settings that they told me to put them at worked in Edmonton just fine for a couple of times, and then I also changed my lower rear control arms from double heim joint to heim joint on the back and poly bushing on the front. And I still don't know if that was a cause of the issue or not, but they're not going to be on there for my next race. And the other thing that I screwed up on is when I put the shock sensor back on the lower control arm, I located it in a different spot. So my data wasn't looking the same as it did at race week. And I didn't even notice that until after the event, which, my bad. And then, what was the other thing? I think those were the two main. And then I figured out after the event that I probably had 30 or so hits on those tires, and I was really hoping that the radials I'd be able to get more out of them, but I'm kind of thinking that with the weight of my car, that after 30 hits those things might be done. We'll know
sidewall maybe.
Yeah, the sidewall might be there's still tons of they look almost brand new still, but they sure didn't feel brand new while I was at that event.
So have you gotten your shocks back yet?
Oh yeah, I got them back before the event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then I did end up breaking one of them. It may or may not be welded back together, and because I tried some other shocks that I had in my garage, some single adjustable QA1s, and apparently one of them has nothing left. It looks good inside the spring, but that's all it does, because it was back to the old days where every gear change, it would pull the wheels off the ground. Every time I launched the car, I would do a wheelie. It was like totally uncontrollable.
And didn't that shock end up donating part of it to fix the other one?
Yeah, I had some old white
9010s.
9010s that we cut the top off, and Jamie TIG welded it back onto my on my other one, on my Viking, and it's working good.
So that's how you're going to leave it?
Well, I might have to call Viking and get another shot.
Okay, I was going to say, do you have new ones on yet?
You could bring it as a spare. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and just just to be clear, it wasn't a Viking issue. We were hitting some really rough roads, and I have TRZ lower control arms that no longer have a bump stop on them, and so it was the bump stop was the shock, and it was actually bending the shock. So it was my bad. It was nothing Viking did wrong. It was not a quality issue or anything there, but
Yeah.
So in the last podcast, Rich, you were hinting at a change, almost like a secret weapon that you had in your car. What was that? I know that was a couple months ago, but I feel like Miles Mayhem was the first thing. What was that all about?
we'll have to talk about that offline.
Okay.
does
Okay. I was gonna say.
Does that mean I'm offline too?
I was gonna say.
Travis, you and me.
Okay.
we'll-
All
we'll
right.
have-
All right. Because the curiosity has been burning. You could tell ever since June, and I didn't know if that had made it to the forefront at Miles Mayhem or not. Is so.
No,
Are we gonna have this? Are we gonna know by Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0?
maybe we'll see.
Maybe. Okay. Okay.
Oh boy. Oh
You know,
man.
I always brag about stick shift racers because I'm like, man, you walk up to a stick shift racer, they'll tell you anything you want to know. I mean, they're not like secretive or whatever. And now look, our poster child, Rich Guido.
Oh boy.
Awesome.
Well, and before we continue on with Miles and Mayhem, so Brent Stevens, who windowed his block, he drove all the way back to Saskatoon, which was where day two was. Borrowed an engine from his buddy, and then joined us at Saskatoon, basically for the 4 days. And I think he would have been tough to beat. Hey, Bill, I think
Oh,
he was
that
he was
car was
590, 591 every
Yes.
day.
that car was impressive as hell. Really impressive.
And he drove the route. He did everything. He just missed day one. In fact, it was funny because they gave him a 10-second pass for his first day just so he could figure out what the average is. They had to change it to a 20-second pass because um, he was everyone's in the standings going like, how did this guy pass me? So they had to fix it. They had to give him 20 seconds because otherwise he would have probably placed third.
Yeah. It was that car's impressive, and I'm looking forward to it for the second race week, which we're gonna get to because the stick shift lineup is gonna be freaking bananas for that. Like it's gonna be a nail biter for sure.
Yeah.
So, so on was it the last day of Miles of Mayhem? I had my car was set up for a perfect, really, really good pass. As a matter of fact, it cut a 140 60 foot. 1-2 shift was good. I was going for the 2-3, and the car quit and coasted to the end. And long story short, the distributor gear, which is actually a cam sync gear, I run a composite gear, and it had basically sheared itself off, like the teeth were gone. I had a spare, so we swapped it out. But if I can back up, when we got to Canada, we changed the oil in my car. And the amount of metal that came out of that on those magnetic drain plugs was staggering. And, at race week, I had changed the oil when we got home after the valve spring. But driving that thing for 30 to 50 miles with a broken valve spring, it must have just been that spring was just destroying itself and putting metal everywhere. And it must have just been the 1,250-mile drive to Canada where it finally settled itself out. Because literally the metal that came out, I was like, oh my God, am I even going to do this? Like I might have to trailer the car home. And we changed it, started up, ran it, pulled the filter. I have a K&P engineering oil filter that's very easy to inspect. We pulled it, everything looked clean. It was good, but I think what happened is some of that metal obviously got eaten up by the oil pump, and I think it fractured that composite gear. And on that pass, the crack had grown, and it finally just broke. And so we went ahead and swapped the gear, and I made another pass that was, I don't know, 590s, 580s, something like that. Maybe it was 560s.
I don't think so. It wasn't quicker than 588. I know that.
Well, that's true. Okay, so maybe it was 590, but it was enough to lock up first place, and then the car drove home no issues. So I think that failure was related to that valve spring from race week 1.0.
Yeah, we got to
And
back up a bit. So,
yep.
so my first pass on the last day was a 628, and Bill's pass because the car shut off was like a 9 something. So
Oh yeah.
I was actually in the lead, and I was ahead of him in the lineup. And there was a big cloud coming, and I may or may not have been the only guy doing a rain dance in the
Oh, I do
in
remember that. Yeah,
staging.
thanks so much.
Because I'm thinking, oh, wouldn't that be a shame if we got rained out right now? Huh.
What a shame. What
And
a
what a
shame.
shame that would have been. So I don't know if Bill saw me, but more than once I was dancing in the staging lane, but it didn't
No,
work.
no, you did a rain dance right next to my door. I do
Oh,
remember that.
maybe it was that, yeah. So it was pretty funny. Uh, anyways,
Yeah.
it honestly, I think on day 3 or something, I made more passes on day 3 of race week than I made of all of sick
Drag
week.
week. Yeah, sick week.
You mean
sorry.
day 3 of Miles
Yeah.
Mayhem?
Yeah, or
Oh,
Miles of Mayhem. Sorry. Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. So I made more passes that week, trying to get just struggling, trying to make a good pass to try to catch Bill. But so, anyways, I learned lots. But I mean, it's still. I definitely made some changes, so hopefully I can have a little bit more control, and there may be 2 sets of tires come with me south, because I had slicks at home all mounted on a set of rims and everything, but day 1 went so good, and we were very fortunate. We only had 2 hotels that we had to stay in. The rest of the time we were at my place. So,
Yeah.
but days 2 and 3, I did not have a set of slicks with me. And then when I did put on slicks for day 4, my shock broke, and it was a rodeo ride. So that was a complete mess. But it was
Yeah.
still awesome. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I mean, to have Bill come up and then Brent to get his stuff back together, it was still an awesome week. It still would have been
Yes.
better if it rained on the last day, but whatever.
Asshole. What's that?
Do you think you're a bit spoiled now, Rich? Because your last event was so close to home. Now you've got to go all the way back south again.
No, my car doesn't like it when it's close. Can't you tell? Like, I mean, it was a shit show so close to home.
Yeah, I guess that's
Like,
true.
it doesn't
Statistically,
get
the further away from home you get, the better your chances are.
my sick week has been my new personal best every time,
Yeah.
every year. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And Bill, what did you think about being so far from home? Was that the furthest you had been driving?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It was the furthest I've been. I ended up putting over 3,800 miles on the car that week. Um, and I have to say, not to be boastful, but doing, gosh, I don't even know, 15, 16, some odd of these drag and drive type events, I was very prepared. People talk about what to pack and stuff, and I can tell you with 100% confidence, if you don't have parts on your car that you can get at O'Reilly's or Napa, you need to pack those as spares. I'm talking about fuel pumps, valve train stuff, composite distributor gears, and I also have bronze backup ones. But all that stuff that I carry as spares, like, it was no big deal. Like, those are usually pretty big breakage deals. They're like game changers, make or break for people. And like that valve train thing broke on the side of the road in Montana. There was like a ton of people stopped, and we were just taking it apart, swapping it, putting it back together, and we were on the road. It was no big deal. Same with the distributor gear. Got pretty lucky. And because it was composite, I wasn't really worried about that stuff going through the motor because it's soft. So, yeah, I think we were super lucky. Didn't have to have the transmission out of the car once. Oh, wait, we forgot. I also broke a roll pin in the transmission on the shifter.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you were on the hook. You were on the hook twice at Miles of Mayhem. He had to get towed back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Rich was like, "Oh man, I got him! I rain dance, roll pin dance. You do it. He's doing all the dances." but fortunately, the tunnel cover on my car is removable, so just pop that off, pop the cover on the transmission, and I thought maybe I broke the transmission, and it ended up just being a roll pin. Pushed a new one in, and we were good to go. I had spares of those as well.
What was the symptoms of that? No, like were you not able to get it into a certain gear or all gears, or what was going on?
So when I made I don't remember 2-3 shift, I think, um, it was like it just wouldn't go or something, and then it was like no gears at all, and I'm like, oh god, I got a whole bunch of neutrals, but it was because it wasn't moving the shift rail. So yeah, that was it. I towed it back and got lucky. I mean, it was a roll pin, which is a fuse. I mean, I'd rather break that than a shift fork or something in the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
for sure. So Rich, you weren't at 1.0 because you had to work, right?
Yeah, I had plant turnaround that was 40 days long, so I was pretty much working 6 and 1 and 12, 13-hour days for 40 days. So I missed 1.0. Yeah.
Yeah, good excuse. So you are going to make it to 2.0, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's the plan for 2.0? Any of you guys making any changes? Bill, what tires are you going to be on? Let's talk about that.
so I'm going to be on these Mickey Thompsons that were so lucky for me for Miles of Mayhem, because they're radial beaters. That's what they are. And I'm gonna drop a fresh clutch in the motor or in the car. Kale is doing a couple of secret things for me on the clutch. So yeah, I'll have a fresh clutch in it. I'm actually gonna probably tear the transmission down and just go through it, make sure everything's good, because I was having a little bit of problems on the 2-3 shift. So I just want to get a look in there, and I'll be curious to see what the input shaft looks like, because it was twisted last time, but I decided to leave it because it wasn't cracked. So we'll see where it is now. But yeah, that's about it. Generally pretty good shape. The motors, I'm pretty confident in where the motor's at, and the tune-up, probably going to start with the same tune-up that I ended up running at Miles of Mayhem, because it was pretty soft on the first part to get down the track, and it's a really good tune-up to start with. So I think that's where I'm going to start.
Nice. Rich, are you going to have Frankenstein shocks on the car still, or are you going to make some updates there?
Yeah, I probably won't change the shock, but I might bring a spare. But it's working. It's working just fine.
Okay.
It's just the
All
top
right.
that got knocked off.
Oh, wait a minute. I know what his secret is. He told me, but I'm not going to say anything. Is that the secret, or is it a different one?
No, that was the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot what it was, so you'd have to tell me again.
Yeah. So I got to put radials back on, fresh set, and let's see. I removed the back seat out of it today, so that's 50 pounds. I wasn't taking the passenger seat out. It's about 40 pounds. I'm going to take that out.
That's 90.
Debating whether or not I put the fiberglass bumper back on, because it's about 30 pounds.
That's over 100 now.
Yeah, I mean, so here's
forget
the reality.
There's a 3,000-pound weight limit for stick. Don't forget that.
Oh yeah, there's a big fear there. So let's talk about race week first of all. So there's 5 guys that are with 850 certs that are going to be a challenge. Like Chad is coming. That's been confirmed.
Chad
Fegley, and he's been in the sevens at race week before, so he's going to be a problem.
Right.
So this could be a battle for second, but here's kind of a quick high level. So Chris Hine has a 33 Roadster. He just beat me at a local event here, which was pretty pretty interesting because I hadn't made too many changes from Miles of Mayhem, and I was 6.0s, 6.1s, pretty consistent. The only thing I did was change my wastegate spring to a lighter spring so I could make less boost off the line and not obliterate the tires on the line. Um, but Chris, he's been 540s in that car, so
Woo! At
he
like
can run
135, right?
at like 135. So he should be able to run 850s. So that thing's 2,900 pounds. So he's going to have to add weight. He's got the same transmission as me, running an RXT 1200.
We're gonna make sure he weighs at every track.
Yeah, we definitely need to. So he's going to
Yes.
be a problem, but he's only got an 850 cert, so he can only run what we're certified to run too, as compared to Chad. Brent Stevens is coming. Same thing. That thing's 850 capable. It's 3,200 pounds. Gen 3 Hemi, twin turbo. Um, it's got a Rob Youngblood dual 8-inch in it currently, and a G-Force GFR with a vertigate, not an H pattern, which is allowed. And then you guys that listen pretty much know Bill and I's combination. So he's been Chris has been 868, Brent's 871, Bill's 870, and I'm 875. And then Tom Stark's got a weapon, hasn't been in the eights
Yes.
yet, but it's just a matter of time before he gets that thing sorted out. If it went 520 with that combo, there's, he should be able to run 850s with that thing too once he gets it sorted out. So, needless to say, I think I'll take the fenders off and the roof off. I don't know what else I'm going to have to do. But yeah, we're talking 3,000 pounds, 3,200 pounds, 3,700 pounds, and then my fat ass at 4,100 pounds. I have the most cubes for sure and probably make the most horsepower, but
Yes.
even Chris, I think he makes 1,400 horsepower with that Texas Speed
Tire.
427.
1,400 tire, he told me.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's gonna
That thing's
be hard to beat.
Yes.
The only thing
Yes,
we can
for
hope
sure.
for is that he runs a 849 and then it rains and has it in the 22nd time slip, because that might be what it takes. But
Yes.
it's stick
Yes.
shift racing, so
Anything can happen.
it's a lot of driving. And I know one day we have to, don't we, go from Kearney to Bandamere and race on the same day?
Yes, yes, and normally that's a drive only day. So I'm gonna be real curious to see how that works. So if I'm not mistaken, we're racing in the mornings and then driving. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's a lot. That's a long drive. I mean, it's 400 miles, and then it'll be like we did at Miles of Mayhem. um, you know, probably
And
make a couple of passes, make sure I'm ahead of you, and then we'll leave.
Interesting.
We will see.
That's going to be an interesting format. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last time you ever make a pass at Bandamere, isn't it, Rich?
Yep.
Well, we have 2 days at Bandamere.
Right.
They were able to flip it, so we're not at Pueblo twice. So we have 2 days at Bandamere. But yeah.
Yeah, Bill, I assume you might do something later in the year if they have like a farewell party or something like that. But it's approaching the end, which is pretty
I'd
sad.
like to think so. Yeah. There was some stuff this weekend that I just didn't go to. I've had a lot of fun with the car, and now it's just sitting right now. So we're in good shape. I've been busy working on the garage. So.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. So have you got? How big is your shop?
So 24 by 48. It has been a comedy of disasters, let's say that, with general contractors and everything else. And let's say I've learned an awful lot building this workshop, that if I do it again, I would 100% not repeat. And we could make a whole podcast on just that, and maybe that would be a good one.
And I think we should. I think one of the future podcast ideas we have that is one of my favorite is shop organization. I know we've talked a lot about that because I know that's something you're passionate about, Bill, especially like coming from aviation, like being pretty anal about organization and your workflows and things like that. So I definitely want to do that. Get some input on that.
Yeah, I will tell you, like even today I was out there working on some stuff and I swept up after myself probably 4 times while I was working. And in full disclosure, I put the same coating on the floor that's in an aircraft hangar. It's white. It's beautiful. And it reflects so much. It's so bright in there. Especially at night. Like you got to turn the lights down because it's so bright.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice. I'm anxious for you to see it, Rich. And change your oil on the 2-post lift or the 4-post, either one when you get here.
As long as it's oil and not transmission, I'm all in.
That's right. That's right. Yes, definitely. So,
Um, yeah, so Rocky Mountain Race Week, that'll be it. But one thing we haven't talked about is the Drag and Drive World Champion. So I don't know, Bill, if you've been paying attention to that at all. But and in fact, I'm not sure who's leading, if it's you or me, or if we're tied.
I think we're tied at 60. Is it 69 points, which is a great number by itself?
It is, yeah.
But I think we're tied, actually.
Can only be wrecked by a period.
Oh my god!
I just saw that one recently. I thought that's pretty funny. But yeah, so if
what punctuation?
Yeah, if you and I both podium on and we're in the eights, we'll be right up there at like 103, 104 points. So it's going to be interesting. And then they announced that at PRI who the winner's going to be, or who the winner was. But if you're interested in that at all, go to the Drag and Drive website. They have the world champion data there.
You both have 69 points. Of course you do.
Yes. That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
And actually, I'm really excited about PRI. Rich, you're going. Travis, you're going.
I am.
Why are you going?
I'm going to be in the Bank Shift Billy booth to represent my friend Bill.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah,
we're launching a brand. Yeah.
That's going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So are you telling people about the product yet, or?
No, not quite yet.
Okay.
But we are launching a brand new product that is not stick shift specific, but it is for drag racing, and I think it's pretty exciting, especially for the drag and drive community. I think people are really going to dig it.
Yeah.
But we will be unveiling the new. The plan is to unveil the new enclosure for the Bank Shift Billy digital clutch controller. We've developed a injection mold case for it, so it's a lot sexier. The other ones are nice, but the injection mold one is really, it's sleek.
Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, like you said, I can help you field most of the questions about the Bank Shift Billy while you're busy telling people about this new cool product you got coming out. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it for sure, because last PRI we saw each other in passing. Like, oh hey, how's it going? Hey, how's your day going over? But yeah, it's gonna be pretty fun.
Well, this time I'm picking you up on my way.
Perfect.
So yes,
I'll be ready. I'll be in my best dressed.
I hope so. I might not wear pants for the drive, but just so you know.
Okay, good. I thought I was alone in that.
No, we'll be together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there is another event called Death Week. I've been busy lately, so I haven't really checked on Tom's website, but I know he was wavering a bit because of the cost of the tracks. It looked like it was going to be pretty expensive for only 100 cars to do. So I think he's looking to see if he could get 200 to do it, but it's probably 2,000 miles. That's not me getting there. That's the actual event. 2,000 miles, starts and ends in Vegas. Really lots of miles, lots of terrain. So I'm not sure what Tom's doing yet. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if it got canceled, because that would be 4 events. That's a lot, especially when you got to drive as far as I do, and because I still might do sick week and that I think that one's in November.
Oh wow!
You've got to do sick
Death
week.
Week's in November.
You have to back up your title at sick week.
Man, a hat trick.
Yep.
Try to get 3.
Yeah.
That would be pretty crazy, but man, there's like I was just lucky last time that the fast guys didn't make it. But I don't know what Chad's got up his sleeve, but we might have to do a little work on the side of his transmission case again or something because that might be the only way to beat that guy. Like,
So, talk a little bit about Death Week. So it goes from Vegas to where?
um,
Sorry to put you on the
I don't know.
spot. I just don't know the route.
Yeah, I'd have to look to see everywhere that it goes, but
Okay.
it's it's a pretty it's probably the longest one that Tom Bailey and crew um, has ever put on, and it was only going to be a one-time event. um, so October 21st, October 29th, and basically we'll be traveling through Arizona, California, and Nevada. Road's
Including the
2,000 miles, includes the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas Strip, Pacific Coast Highway, and of course Death Valley. The drives will not be basic. There will be switchbacks, extreme grades, plus the obvious challenge of altitudes, high and low. It is 8th mile. There's no classes, and currently, like on the post, he talks that there will only be 100 cars allowed in. But I think he's changing that to see how many people show expression of interest, and if he can get 200, he might still have it. Excuse me, it might still have it this year, or he might move it to next year.
Very interesting.
But yeah. What else we got out there? Hopefully, what's going on, Bill? Bill, you having some tummy problems over there? I can see when you go on mute, and then it's like traveling with my dad. When I see him push into the seat, I'm like, oh boy, what's going on here?
Oh
Open the
man.
windows. I got power windows, thankfully, so I
Yeah.
can take care of it. But your eyes.
Let's just say, let's be glad that smell vision's not a thing yet.
Yeah.
It's like I crank up the noise suppression on this thing so high, but somehow
I do love me some Brussels sprouts. And with that, I have nothing else.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out who the next guests will be. We'll definitely have to get in touch with. The other thing I didn't mention too is on my trip down there, I stopped at PFI Speed. One thing about the import guys is they're all sticks. So we spent quite a bit of time with Brent and Jamie and his sons and stuff. They were great. I think they had a lot to do with Clay coming and talking to us, because we also got to go into Clay's pits and watch him tear down the motor. So huge shout out to Brent and Jamie from PFI Speed. Really love those guys. They're awesome. So it'll be interesting too, because one of those guys could come and kick our butts at Rocky Mountain Race Week in the stick shift class too. They're getting those cars sorted out.
Mm-hmm. That'd be very interesting. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of cars coming. This is not a dying sport by any stretch of the imagination. It seems to be the way to go. And more and more people are starting to realize how nice it is to have a couple overdrives on these events. So hopefully
Michael. Go ahead.
Hopefully we just hear more stories of like your buddy throwing away his purse and putting in a good transmission in his car. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, and Michael, honestly, sorry, go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, Michael Nark said that 75 cars in the stick shift have competed in drag and drive so far this year. So he said it's definitely growing. Like Miles of Mayhem, I think we had 27 or 22 cars in the stick shift class. It was huge. So yeah, lots of these drag and drive. The stick shift is the biggest class cars, like not the bracket ones, but of the class cars, quite often the stick shift class is the biggest class. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and I will second that double overdrive thing. It made the Like I literally was getting 300 miles out of a tank of fuel on the drive to Canada. And I may have gotten a ticket on the way back in Canada, which I should go pull that out of my car now and pay that so that I can be allowed to come back in the country again. But,
Just tell me, no, Rich Guido.
yeah, I may have confused mile an hour with kilometers. And what is the posted speed limit there in kilometers?
I think it's 110 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. So technically I wasn't speeding because I wasn't at 110, but I may have confused kilometers and miles an hour. So
Right. I was gonna say, when you told the
was
story
close, though.
about your daughter driving back home at 90 miles an hour, I was like, oh, why so slow?
right. Yeah, I was pretty impressed, and she got to make her first pass on a drag strip as a road weaker in the Volkswagen, and that was super cool. I rode shotgun with her. She was super nervous, but she did good.
Nice.
So, yeah. All right, guys. Hey, fellers. I think we're good.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, and
All right.
yeah, we'll apologize to those people who do listen. We will try to get back on this. It's just been really busy for both of us. So
Yeah,
all three of us really.
I think we've got some cool ones in store that will hopefully make up for it. I mean, Clay Milliken sounds very promising. I would like to get Flying H drag strip on here at some point. They're a new drag strip close to here in Kansas City, which is very nice because as we see, a lot of drag strips are closing. So the fact that someone is willing to put in a lot of money to get a very nice facility put together. They've already, shook hands with the NHRA, so this is going to be a top-notch facility. So I'd like to get them on to talk to them a little
Fantastic.
bit. Hopefully,
Yes.
rejuvenate, because I think the community could use it a little bit. The Garage Organization podcast, which I'm very excited about. Maybe it's just going to be me and you excited, Bill, but I'm pretty excited to talk about that one.
Well, I found a couple of good links. I'll share those with you when we get off here. But yeah, that would be great. So let's. Huge thanks to Travis and Stickshift Nation for hosting the podcast. And of course, you can find Clutch Burners on all the platforms. And if you'd like to see Clutch Burners podcast continue, get on over to stickracing.com and grab a Stickshift Nation shirt, hat, or sticker.
They're pretty cool.
Is that it?
They're
weird. I mean, look at these two good looking guys.
Yeah,
right
sure.
Yeah.
Woo! Look at.
Come on, don't forget about
We
this.
Right.
Oh, we got all three of them here. This is awesome. All right. So thank you very much. I think we're over.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.